Hi there, it's Keith from the Evangelical Free Church Stony Stratford, and we're continuing our series of short talks in the book of Psalms, and today we come to a very well-known one, Psalm 23. It's one of the best known Psalms, perhaps one of the best known parts of the Bible. It's often a reading that people like read at various times or take comfort from. Recently, Tracy and I had a holiday up in a place called Reef, which is a village up in Swellsdale in North Yorkshire. Basically, it was conducive to what we wanted to do, as little as possible, or to do what we wanted to do when we felt like doing it. Why? Because it's a quiet, peaceful country setting. And that's very much what we get in this psalm, which is perhaps why it is so well loved. David starts the psalm by saying in verse 1, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters." Interesting enough, before David was king, he had been a shepherd. He understood the pastoral setting. He understood what it was to guide the sheep and to care for their well-being. And that's very much the picture we get here of God, isn't it? A guy called Tim Keller, he's a pastor, but he was a shepherd for quite a long time as well, and he understands sheep. And this bit about sort of lying down in green pastures and being led beside still waters is very poignant, because he says, you know, sheep are flighty animals. They won't settle down, they won't lie down unless there's no insects about, unless they're well fed. Any uncertain noise or something like that will spook them. So this is a picture of contentment. It's a lovely picture, isn't it? Verse 3, "He restores my soul and guides me in the paths of righteousness." Rather interestingly, that picture of the soul being restored, it can be translated from the Hebrew, "He forgives. He takes the burden of my wrongdoing off me." So there's a picture of comfort. Secondly, there's a picture of security. David often faced difficulty before he became king, and afterwards as well. He had enemies and people making his life difficult. And so he writes this, and I think this is something which really strikes a chord with many people. "Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me, and your rod and your staff, they comfort me." That's a lovely picture. I actually like that, because it shows that if we have a relationship with God, it doesn't mean problems go away, but God is there with us. 9 years ago now, my mother died. She was a highly intelligent woman, yet in the last 4 years, she was reduced to a childlike status because she had severe dementia. Tracy and I had to do everything for her. Feed her, put her to bed at night, get her up in the morning, and various other duties as well. You can imagine it was not an easy thing, particularly when you'd had someone you'd loved so well as being so calm and capable, reduced to that state. But strangely enough, it wasn't as bad as all that. It was fun too. I still retained a sense of humour. And we were very aware that God doesn't necessarily take problems away, but he does show you a way through them. That theme actually continues. Verse 5, "You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows." David's enemies may have been present, but the Lord cared for him, and the Lord gave him a position of comfort. To go to a banquet in the ancient Near East, you would perhaps be anointed with oil. You'd certainly, if you were the guest of honour, you'd be well fed. So he says, "My cup overflows." He wasn't short of being looked after by the Lord at all. And it's rather interesting because the change of language here is interesting. He talked, didn't he, about the Lord. He restores my soul. But you may have noticed, since the valley is the shadow of death, verse 4, and this, it's your rod and your staff. And you prepare a table before me. There's a close personal relationship for David with the Lord. And not surprisingly, David wants more of this. He wants more fellowship. Verse 6, surely goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. David feels security, yes, but he wants closer fellowship. He wants to know more of the Lord. It's not about David thinking, well, actually, I'm thinking of chucking in being a king and going and, working in the tabernacle as a priest. No, it's just a craving to know more of God's love and security. Well, how would we understand this today? The Bible is full of motifs of the shepherd and the Lord being a shepherd. Let's just go to the words of Jesus. These will really help us. In John's Gospel, chapter 10, what did Jesus say? He says this, verse 11, I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. There's the picture, God's care for us. Flawed as we might be, sinful as we might be, people who do our own way, who are proud, who leave God out of the equation of our life. But God wants a relationship with us and he wants to care for us. Listen to the security the Lord gives. Later on, Jesus says this, verse 14, I'm the good shepherd. I know my sheep and my sheep know me. Do you have a relationship like that with Jesus? Do you know God like that? You may attend church. You may do all the right things and say all the right prayers, but David had a rich and full relationship with God, which took him through the tough times. And I emphasize this again, it wasn't that God took these away. No, this is a picture of him dining in the presence of his enemies. No, God looked after him. God saw him through. That's a real encouragement in an uncertain world, isn't it? And we can know that when we come to Jesus and seek forgiveness. As I said, it's an uncertain world. You may be facing problems, like I've said, this psalm highlights. Here's a book out on the front of the rails of the church. Where's God when things go wrong? Thank you so much for listening.